Is heaven real? How do I know that I'm going there? And with those questions squared away, hopefully you know today that if this were your last day on earth, that heaven would be your home. I hope that you have got that squared away. And so now we can begin to get into some of the nitty-gritty questions, if you will. Some of the questions that they don't really matter maybe in the long run as far as living our lives, but they're really fun for us to think about. And I think that they enhance our thinking of heaven. When we begin to think about heaven, let's get beyond just streets of gold and, will I become an angel? Let's try to think about what the day-to-day might be like. What kind of things are we going to do? What will we see? And let's begin today with a question that might not sound important to some of you, but to others, I know that this is a question that really is a big deal. And our first question this morning is, will my pets be in heaven? Am I going to see my pets in heaven? For some of you, you think, oh, who cares if pets are going to be in heaven? Well, I know some of you might not care about this, but for others, you really, really want your pets to be there. Now, let's think about this. For those of you that might think, no big deal if pets are in heaven, pets are a dime a dozen. Well, now, there's a lot of people that would argue with you on that. Their pet is part of the family. There's people that have dogs and cats, they have birds and fish. There's even some weirdos out there with snakes. Some of you, I'm just being honest with you. If you have a pet snake, you know my position on that. But, if that's what you want, go for it. If you can consider a snake a pet, there's all kinds of pets out there. We had a pet iguana when I was growing up, not for too long. We had a pet squirrel. I've talked about that with our men's Bible study a few weeks ago. We found it. It was about that big and had no hair, and we didn't know what it was. And my mom used to wake up and feed it with an eyedropper, and then it turned out to be a squirrel, and we had that pet for a while. People have all kinds of pets, and people love their pets. Americans spend $58 billion a year on their pets. Think about that. Dog food's expensive, isn't it? Between going to the vet and buying them toys. How many of y'all give your pets Christmas gifts? Y'all, okay, see right there, $58 billion, and now we know why. Americans love their pets. More than half of every household in the country has at least one dog. And almost half of every household in this country has at least one cat. Altogether, there are an estimated 400 million pets in the United States. So for those of you that say, who cares if our pets are going to be there? I'm telling you, many people do. They want to know this. The dog that we buried and we put across in our backyard, am I going to see that dog one day again in heaven? And some of you are thinking, I hope not. Some of you are thinking, I couldn't get rid of that dog fast enough. I didn't like that dog. My kids wanted it. They promised they'd walk him every day and feed him, and then I got stuck with the dog. I hope that dog's not in heaven. And we might have different opinions on whether or not we want to see our pets in heaven. But I tell you, this is a question on a lot of people's mind, and it gets asked all the time. Will we play fetch with Fido when we get to heaven? Are we going to see not just generic animals, but the very animals that we had down here on earth? Are we going to see them in heaven? And there's people that will say yes to this. In her book titled The Heaven of Animals, Nancy Tillman wrote this: when dogs get to heaven, they're welcomed by name, and angels know every dog's favorite game. Even the beloved theologian C.S. Lewis wrote in his book titled The Problem of Pain, he said that animals may have an immortality based on the salvation of their masters. In other words, if you're a Christian, he says, then your pets will then go to heaven. If you are unsaved, then your pets are out of luck. Their life in the afterworld is based on your salvation. Now, that is coming from a man who wrote about talking lions and beavers. So, maybe C.S. Lewis, maybe that's wishful thinking. I know I love C.S. Lewis. But for people like Nancy Tillman, C.S. Lewis, and others that say, yes, all dogs go to heaven, our pets will be there, this is not based on a Bible verse, and I want to make that clear right away. This is based, though, on the logic that says heaven is supposed to be great, all of our dreams are supposed to come true, and I love my pet very much, and I can't envision a great place where my pet will not be there. So not based on a Bible verse, just this logic that says, if heaven's going to be great, then my dog or my cat or my snake is going to be in heaven. So that sounds good, and I do believe that heaven is going to be great. I believe that heaven will surpass our wildest dreams. It will not meet our expectations. Heaven will far exceed them. But that is not a valid presupposition to say, just because I love my pet on earth, in order for me to enjoy heaven, my pet must be there. Because there are some things that we enjoy on earth that will not be in heaven. How many of y'all like to shoot deer? Any hunters out here? And I know that. Do you think you're going to shoot deer in heaven? I don't think so. I mean, I don't see any way that we can kill things in heaven. Now, will God create something cool like maybe virtual reality or some kind of simulation where a fake deer walks by and we fake shoot it and it feels like the real thing and we enjoyed that? Maybe. Maybe God can come up with something like that. But just because we enjoy something on earth does not mean that it's necessarily in heaven, or else we don't get to enjoy heaven. Oh, there's no hunting? Well, then I don't even want to go. You know, I don't think that saying, because my dog is not going to make it to heaven, because my cat is not going to be there, then I'm not going to enjoy it. Well, if we're going to be honest, there's people that are not going to be in heaven, right? And we're still going to enjoy it. So if we think heaven is going to be spoiled by the absence of our pets, how much worse would it be by the absence of our loved ones that were not believers? Look, just because we enjoy something on earth does not necessarily mean it makes it to heaven. Here's the deal, though. Some people say, well, there will not be pets in heaven because pets don't have souls. Well, I disagree with that. Pets do have souls. Everything that is alive has a soul. And I believe that would even mean mosquitoes and scorpions and things if we want to really get down into it. But every living thing has a soul. Look, last Wednesday night, for those of you that were here, we read from Proverbs 12 and verse 10. In Proverbs 12:10, remember this verse from Wednesday night? Solomon said, whoever is righteous has regard for the life of his beast, or literally, the soul of his beast. We need to understand two Hebrew words that are very important to this discussion today. The first is nefesh. That's an easy Hebrew word to say, N-E-F-E-S-H. Nefesh. This is the word that is often translated for us as soul, but it is likewise used in a very broad sense to refer to anything that is alive. Even saying, who is righteous has regard for the life, literally the nefesh, the soul of his beast. We see in Leviticus chapter 11, verse 10, when speaking about animals, it refers to the soul or the nefesh of the animal. Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 3 both use the same word. Genesis 9. Genesis 1 and 9 both refer to the soul of the animal. So we need to understand what this word soul means. Our soul, our nefesh, you have one, your animal has one. It's really, though, who we are, not so much what we have. This is what makes us us. It's you. It's your personality. It's what sets you apart from the person sitting beside you. There will never be another you because of your nefesh. You are a living soul. The Bible says that God breathed into the nostrils of Adam and he became a nefesh. He became a living soul. It's used of people in general. When Jacob ran off and met his uncle Laban and then got married and began having children, and then he moved back to Israel, it says, and with him going into Israel were 66 souls, 66 nefesh, people. So anything that is alive can be considered to be a living soul. But again, it's not something you put your hands on. It's your personality. It's what makes you unique. It's kind of who you are. So you could say, my soul is who I am. Different than my physical body that I can touch. This is what I look like, but my soul is who I am. Alan Gomez has defined it this way. He says, nefesh does not denote something man possesses or some part of him, but rather what he is. An old theologian, Emmy Osterhaven, he referred to the soul, the nefesh, he said, as a living being or the person. That's why the psalmist declared, bless the Lord, O my soul. As our children sang this morning, bless the Lord, O my nefesh, who I am, not just my physical life, but the person, all that is within me. Do animals have a soul? Well, yes, Scripture tells us that they do. Except cats. I mean, let's be honest. Cats don't have personality. They're all the same. No, I'm just joking. But look, you can have a dog. You might say you get a bulldog and you say, man, that bulldog was the best pet I ever had. And he lives a good old age and he dies and you bury him and you say, that was such a good bulldog. I'm going to go get another bulldog. And then you get another bulldog and you say, that is the worst dog I've ever had in my life. How is that possible? Same breed. Why? Different soul, different nefesh. They're completely different animals. Does it matter that they're both bulldogs? No different than two men or two women can be the same gender, the same human being, but be completely different people. That's what our soul is. It's our personality. But then the other word you see on the screen is the word that is translated for us as spirit. In Hebrew, it's ruach. Or if you really want to get the Hebrew pronunciation down a little bit better, it's ruach. You sound like you want to clear your throat. And that's that Hebrew word ruach. And this is such an important word because the Holy Spirit is the ruach, and our breath, even the wind blowing, it's this word is so broad in Hebrew. But when we speak about living things, when we speak about the part of us that is immortal, we're speaking of the Spirit. We often say, well, Grandpa was laid to rest, but his soul is with the Lord. And that sounds good, but what we really mean by that is his spirit is with the Lord. The ruach, the spirit in us, is eternal. The spirit is what lives forever. The ruach is who we are. The spirit is something that we have. I have a spirit. I am a soul. And so we have personality. And I believe that both our spirit and our soul live on when we die, because our spirit goes to be with the Lord and our soul is still who we are when we are with the Lord. Our quirks, our personalities, the things that make us who we are, lives on in our spirit because it is not part of our body. I said a couple weeks ago that there is a trichotomy in man. We are body, soul, and spirit. So even though this body will be buried and put into the ground, the other two parts live on. So I will never stop being me, even in heaven. I will always be me because my soul is united with my spirit, and that is eternal. So the important question then is not just, do animals have a soul? It's, do animals have a spirit? Well, again, yes, they do. They have the breath of life in them. But then the other question is their spirit eternal? If you go back, Corey, to the slide you had up a minute ago, please, that had the verse from Ecclesiastes on there. In fact, I'll invite you to Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Can you turn there to Ecclesiastes chapter 3 if you have your Bibles? And really, I'm just kind of punking you. I want to see how long it takes you to find Ecclesiastes. We're gonna know who needs to do more sword drills in Sunday school. Don't go to the table of contents. You can find it. Some of you aren't even trying. I'm just messing with you. I know it's not a book we turn to all that often. Ecclesiastes, you're saying it's on the screen. Yeah, but we're going to look at more than just the one on the screen. You give up? All right, I'm just joking. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, though. Let's look in verse 17. I said in my heart, God will judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time for every matter and for every work. I said in my heart with regard to the children of man, that God is testing them, that they may see that they themselves are but beasts. For what happens to the children of man and what happens to the beasts is the same. That means we die. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath, ruach. We all have a spirit within us. And man has no advantage over the beast. That means animals die and we die, for all is vanity. And all go to one place. This is the realm of the dead. And all are from the dust, and to dust all return. Who knows whether the spirit of man goes upward and the spirit of the beast goes down into the earth? And that's an implied answer in that he means God knows. God is the judge. So what he says is people and animals are the same. We are made out of bodies made from the dust that one day will die and return to the dust. We bury our pets. We bury our people. We all go to the realm of the dead. That means we will die on this earth. But the spirit of man goes up and the spirit of the beast goes down. So what he means by that is it says that we have an advantage over the animals in that while they have personality, while they have the breath of life, they are not going to be immortal. I'm sorry if that bursts a bubble here today. I've had pets too that broke my heart when we had to bury them. But here's the thing. Jesus became a person and he died for people. Jesus did not become a dog and die for dogs, did he? He did not become a cat and die for the cats, or a goldfish and die for your goldfish. He became a person and he died for us. We are the pinnacle of God's creation. And we experience salvation because of what Jesus did. Otherwise, for animals, it becomes merit-based because they don't get saved. You ever see a dog they had to put down because it bit somebody? You know, one of those Dobermans or something, and attacked someone, they had to put it to sleep. Did that dog earn salvation, or is that dog going to go to hell? Right? Is it merit-based? Oh, that was a good dog. He deserved heaven. Well, that can't be how it works, because that's not how it works for us. You have to be perfect to make it to heaven. Our dogs, our cats, they're not perfect, and they do bad things. Therefore, they should deserve, it's really better for them that they just cease to exist. The breath of life that they have in them is not immortal or eternal. When our pets die, that is it for them. However, there are going to be animals in the eternal state. We know this. In fact, the Bible speaks about the lion laying down with the lamb. There are going to be animals in the eternal state. So it's not like we're going to sit around for eternity saying, I could just really use a cat on my lap right now. There's going to be. I believe in the eternal state, then we will have animals that live forever. It won't be the same ones we had on earth because they did not have immortal spirits. But as we live forever, there will be animals that populate this earth, and we're not going to miss our pets because they will be replaced, if you will, with things that are even better than that. Not just dogs and cats. I'll probably have an alligator. I'm just thinking about something, you know, it is football season. I love the Gators. Well, how cool would it be to have an alligator and it's not going to eat me? It's just going to be a tame pet alligator. You can have whatever you want. Alicia might have a bear. She's terrified. She's terrified of bears, but they're not going to eat you in heaven. So there's nothing to worry about there. The lion will lay down with the lamb. In fact, there's a psalm that speaks about how God is going to restore the earth to the way that it was, including creating the animal kingdom. In Psalm, where is it? Oh, no, it's Isaiah. No, it is Psalm 104. In Psalm 104, it says, when you take away their breath, speaking of animals, they die and return to the dust. When you send your spirit, they are created and you renew the face of the earth. I believe that what the psalmist is saying here is that when God comes and rejuvenates the earth and makes all things new, that the animal kingdom will go back to the way it was in the Garden of Eden. Rather than eating the lamb, the lion will lay down with it. In fact, Isaiah, this is what I was looking for a minute ago, is Isaiah says that children will be able to take bears by the hand and lead them while they graze. Think about that. A grizzly bear. Just imagine these little kids that were on the stage a minute ago, and one of them can come up and take a grizzly bear by the hand, and the bear will just follow, and you're not going to worry, oh, honey, don't touch that bear, it'll eat you. No, not in the eternal state. It'll be a real-life teddy bear. You can give it a hug, and it'll be soft, and it'll be cuddly, but it's not going to hurt you. There will be animals for us to enjoy for all eternity. They're not going to hurt us. We're not going to be scared of them, and they're not going to eat each other. It's going to be like it was in the Garden of Eden. They're all going to be vegetarians. They will all be herbivores in heaven. And God is going to completely restore the animal kingdom to the way that it once was. And just food for thought, I've already mentioned snakes. They might even have legs in heaven. Right? Let's go back to how it was in the Garden of Eden. And then God cursed the snake and told him to slither on its belly. I believe they used to have legs like a lizard, 4 legs. And God might even turn them back to the way they were in the Garden of Eden when the curse is finally broken. We don't know that. It's just speculation, but let's move on from animals. I think I've made the point. As much as I love our pets, I don't think they'll be in heaven, but we will have animals to enjoy. Our next question, will I know everyone in heaven? Will I remember you? Will you remember me? And will I be able to see a person I've never met? Oh, look, there's the Apostle Paul. Let me go introduce myself. Am I going to recognize people, though I've never seen them, right away know who they are? Or my great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, am I going to walk up to them and know exactly who they are? Is this stuff going to carry over into heaven? Well, I believe that it does. I believe that we will know each other. In fact, the verse you see on the screen, when Paul was writing to the church at Thessalonica, 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 19, he says that you, to the people in the church, he says, you are our hope, you are our joy, you are the crown of boasting before the Lord Jesus at his coming. This talks about when we leave earth, when we're raptured, or when we make it to heaven. Paul fully expected to see the people in Thessalonica when he was in heaven. He's saying, I'm going to remember you in heaven. You people got saved through my ministry, and I'm going to be able to celebrate that with you when the Lord returns. So that makes us realize that Paul's not going to look at them as complete strangers when they get to heaven. He's going to say, hey guys, look, there you are. I promised you that heaven was real. And then we'll be able to catch up and we'll be able to fellowship with one another. In 1 Corinthians 13, his love chapter, Paul says that down here we're all doing the best we can, but up there we will know and we will be fully known. We're going to know each other even better up there than we do down here. And I believe that means we'll see the Apostle Paul and we'll recognize him right away. Does that mean that we're going to know everything about him and he'll know everything about us? I think we'll spend eternity getting to know each other better. I think we'll know each other, recognize each other, but then we will get to know more about each other for all of eternity. And how great will our relationships be in heaven? When you think about that, there will be no secrets. There will be no things that we hope people don't find out. We will just be able to be open and honest with each other, and our relationships will certainly be enriched. Randy Alcorn said, our minds will be clearer in heaven, not foggier. Memory is basic to personality. I said last week when I said I'm not going to turn into an angel, I said if Tommy Mann dies and becomes something else, then Tommy Mann ceased to exist. But if I don't carry my memory with me to the other side, then I'm still not me. If God wipes it clean and gives us a clean slate, then I'm still just not myself. He might as well start from scratch with a completely new person. My memory will carry over with me, or else I'm not going to be me, but my soul, which is who I am, lives on. How much are we going to remember? Are there going to be things that we forget? Sure, I think we're going to forget all the things that we don't want to remember. Am I going to look at you and remember that time that you lied to me? Or are you going to remember that time that I betrayed you? I think we're going to forget all that stuff. When I was a kid, my brother and I, we got in a big argument. In fact, we were playing football out in our front yard, and an argument ensued, which commonly does if you had siblings, and we began to argue, and to this day, I don't remember what the argument was about, but I remember my brother say, when we get to heaven, I'm going to ask God who was right. And I said, no, when I get to heaven, I'm going to ask God who was right. And suddenly we were in a race to die and get to heaven, just to prove for spite, I'm going to die so I can prove to you I was right. I don't think we're going to remember that stuff in heaven. Do you think I'm going to walk right up to God? Well done, good. Yeah, that's great, God. Hey, who was right that argument when me and my brother were 6 and 7? We're not going to care about that stuff when we get there. But our memory is going to carry over. I think we're going to be able to share stories and reminisce. We're going to remember the good times. I think we're even going to be able to look at the bad times in a different light and see how God was shaping us through some of those bad things. That maybe we didn't understand it on earth, but it will become clearer to us when we get to heaven. We sing, we'll understand it better by and by, and I think that we truly will. Right now we say, God, how can you put us through something like this? When we get up there, we're going to say, oh, I get it now. I see how it all fit together. But part of that is going to entail our memory carrying over to the other side. We're not going to lose that. We're going to know each other. We're going to remember the things that we did down here. And I think that's going to be a good thing. A next question, will I live in a mansion when I get to heaven? Well, yes. We're absolutely going to live in mansions when we get to heaven. The first week in this series, we turned to John 14 and we read what Jesus had to say. In my Father's house are many mansions. And he said, I'm going to prepare a place for you. So we know this unequivocally that we will live in mansions when we get to heaven. But we need to define the word mansion. We have to understand what a mansion is. The word mansion comes to us in English by way of Latin. When the Bible was translated from Hebrew to Greek, then Greek to Latin, that's called the Vulgate. So when we translated, not we, I wasn't there, but when English speakers translated from Latin into English, they took the word mansion from Latin and just put it straight into English. The only difference is they took the letter E out of the word mansion. And the word mansion, as it appeared in Latin in those days, it refers to separate rooms within the same house. That's the definition of the word, the only definition of the word. Rooms within the same house. So I could walk into the parsonage and say, that's TJ's mansion, and that's Reagan's mansion, and the master mansion, that's down the hall, right? Rooms within the same house. The King James Bible is not wrong for using the word mansion. In fact, that's the actual idea that Jesus was trying to paint for us. But as English has evolved, now we think of mansions as huge houses with a lot of square footage and lots of rooms. But that's just not the idea Jesus was trying to paint. Now, he's talking about the present heaven, where our loved ones are right now. So I believe that all of our loved ones who have already died and gone to heaven are in mansions. They're in rooms in the same house. What did Jesus say? In my Father's house are many rooms, many mansions. So the idea here is about being close to the Father. It's the Father's house. We don't live miles and miles away from him, or we have to get a map or a GPS to be able to find him. We all have a room in the Father's house. Maybe, though, Jesus wasn't even being literal when he said that. If we understand the Jewish wedding culture in those days, it makes a lot more sense to us. In those days, and I've talked about this before, you've probably all heard me say it, but in those days when a groom would be betrothed, when he would propose marriage, he would then tell his bride-to-be, he would say, I'm going to go prepare a place for you, and when I'm finished, I will come and then I will receive you to myself. So she had to be ready at a moment's notice. She had no idea when he was going to get back. He would do two things. He would go and get a job if he didn't already have one, but more importantly, he would go and prepare the home that they would live in. Today, we might go get an apartment first or, a starter home while we're trying to save up to get that. They didn't do that. They didn't get married until the house was finished. But the house was an addition onto the groom's father's house. And so he would go and build a room onto his father's house. And when he was done building on the room that day, he would put down the hammer and then he would go pick up his bride. She had to be ready because she did not know when he was coming back. And of course, in that, we see a picture of not only heaven, but the rapture, that we are like the bride of Christ, waiting for him to return. At any moment, we don't know when, and we've got to be ready. But as it stands now, he's preparing a room for us in the Father's house. So is there some giant house with billions of rooms? That'd be a really long hallway, wouldn't it? But that may be the case. Or it may just be a poetic way of Jesus saying, just as a groom loves his bride and goes and prepares a new place, I'm doing the same thing for you. Just a way of referring to heaven in general, saying, in my Father's house, there's room for you and you and you and you. Where normally that was just said to one person. I love you so much, I'm going to go prepare a place for you. Jesus said it to 12 people right there. And by extension, all of us. In heaven, there's room for everybody. We're all going to be close to the Father. We're all going to be in a perfect relationship with Jesus. That's the present heaven. In the eternal state, we saw this last week, but he says we will build houses and dwell in them. We're going to come down here and build our own homes and live in them on earth for all eternity. So if you want a mansion, be my guest. You build it as big as you want it to be. Or if you're satisfied with just a cottage below, you build whatever you want to build. We're going to build our own houses and dwell in them. The idea is about being close to God, not about the square footage of my house. But speaking of houses, let's answer this next question. Will I be married in heaven? Am I going to have a spouse in heaven? And we don't have to debate this. Jesus told us unequivocally that the answer to this one is no. We're not going to be given in marriage in heaven. In fact, you see it on the screen, Matthew 22, but Jesus said it in all three synoptics. Mark and Luke both record. It was a trap question for Jesus. But just imagine the same thing down here today. A Christian couple, they get married, and then one day one of the spouses passes away and the survivor remarries another believer. So what's going to happen in heaven? If we're married in heaven, what do you do now when you have a third wheel, kind of so to speak, a person that's been remarried? Well, now the question of Jesus was about 7 husbands. This woman had 7 husbands that died, but the reality is still the same. Even if it's just 2 husbands, we're in the same dilemma. And Jesus answered by saying, no one's going to be given in marriage in heaven. Why is that? Because that might be sad to us. Well, first of all, the first purpose of marriage is procreation. And there's no procreation in heaven. But a second purpose of marriage is to portray the relationship that we have as the bride of Christ. Our marriages on earth serve as a picture of what our relationship with Jesus is all about. As a husband and wife come together as one flesh, it's a shadow of a greater relationship that you and I as individuals are in a relationship with Jesus. And when we get to heaven, the relationship with Jesus is fully realized, and the picture of that as husband and wife is no longer necessary. Another purpose of marriage, though, is simply that God looked at Adam and said, it's not good for man to be alone. And so he made a companion, a helper that was suitable for him. Beyond procreation, beyond a portrait of our relationship with Christ, I'm glad to be married just for companionship. I can't imagine the thought of not being married to Alicia and to say, you're not going to be married in heaven. That is depressing to some. It's disappointing. They say, well, why do I even want to go? Well, it's not going to be, I can assure you. Just because Alicia and I might not wear wedding rings when we get to heaven does not mean that our relationship is going to be diminished in any way. In fact, I believe that it will be even better in heaven than it is now. Dr. David Jeremiah said, "The gladness and the fulfillment that we all know in our perfect heavenly union with Christ will transcend any satisfaction we've known in marriage." First of all, our relationship with Christ will be so fulfilling that if there's not a single other person in all of the New Jerusalem, our relationship with Jesus will be so fulfilling that we won't miss anything. But there's going to be other people, billions of us, and we're all going to be in richer relationships, as we said a minute ago. What that means is my relationship with Alicia will be better than it is now. I don't think that we're going to not be able to be with each other because, well, we're not married up here. We can't talk to each other. No. Or not up here. I guess it would be down here. But say, well, just because we're not married, we can't be friends. We're going to be even better friends than we are now, even closer than we are now. And that same closeness we have will be with everybody. So that if you are one of those people with two spouses in heaven, then your relationship with both of them will be as rich and fulfilling as it is with every person you know and with every stranger that you're going to meet when you get up there. Our relationships will be better. But I believe we might have closer relationships with some than we do with others. I think Alicia will still be my best friend in heaven, and my children will still be our children in heaven. And so don't think for a minute that it's going to be sad or I just wish we were married. It's not going to be something that we miss or something that we'll be sad about. So we might not wear our wedding rings, but we'll still be together for all eternity. And to me, that's a wonderful thing. Our final question this morning is, what will my body look like in heaven? Some of you might wonder that. You might look in the mirror and say, geez, I can't wait till I get to heaven. Maybe I'll have a better one than this. Or maybe, I'm talking to the guys, right? Or maybe you say, I'm not as young as I used to be. Will I look younger in heaven? Will I look like my prom picture? Will I look like I did on our wedding day? Or will my hair be gray? Will I be bald? I'm not going to need glasses, but will my body look like it does exactly now? If I live to be 100, am I going to be in heaven with a 100-year-old body that's faster? If I die as a young child, will I look like a young child for all of eternity? Maybe smaller but faster? Or are we all going to look the same in heaven, around the same age? A lot of people believe that we will look like we're relatively in our prime. And I don't know what you might consider prime. Some people say about 30 years old, maybe 35. If that's the case, then I guess I'm over the hill. But our bodies, our eternal bodies are described in 1 Corinthians 15 as being imperishable and immortal. So I believe in eternity. I believe that we're going to have bodies that will have at least all 5 of our senses. I say at least because wouldn't it be cool if there's other senses we have in heaven we don't even know about now? A 6th sense or a 7th or 8th? Who knows? But we're going to be given bodies that the sky's the limit, so maybe we'll have more than 5 senses. But even if it's just 5, our 5 senses are going to be better there than they are now. Our eyesight will be keener. Our reflexes will be faster. Our precision will be sharper. Our hearing is going to be better. So people now that might have hearing aids, you're not going to need those. You're not going to need your glasses because those things that might get diminished with time will not be diminished. But what about our wrinkles? I've started to get wrinkles. Will my wrinkles be there in heaven, or are those going to be smoothed out again? I dye my hair. Is my hair going to be my color that it used to be when I get to heaven, or is it going to look white? Am I going to be bald? We just don't know. But I believe that we're all going to look like we're probably around our 30s, and based on several things. Thomas Aquinas said that he believed that we would all be the same age that Jesus was when he died. Now, we know that Jesus was in his early 30s when he died, so there might be something to that. But Adam and Eve were not created as infants, right? They were created seemingly in their prime of life. And that's what's known as an apparent age. And I believe that that's what God's going to do. He's going to put us all in our apparent age. So what about children that were never made it out of the womb, whether through miscarriage or abortion or stillbirth? I believe they're going to be in heaven too, but not this big. I believe that they will look like they would have looked had they lived to be about 30 years old. People that live to be 100, they might revert back in time to what they looked like when they were about 30. And we'll all just be kind of right there in that prime of life. To me, that makes sense. Before our bodies really begin to start to change, before our back and knees begin to hurt, and before we begin to, slouch and shrink and all the things that I'm starting to experience at 36, I look forward to where I am twice my age from now. But I think that that's how it's going to be. But the most important thing is whatever our bodies look like is that they will never again slow down. They will never again begin to deteriorate. They will never age and they will never die. We will drink at long last from Ponce de Leon's fountain of youth, and we will never be pierced by the sharp arrows of death again. We will have eternity in whatever our bodies look like. I believe we'll be able to get around pretty well. Will we fly in heaven? Why not? Wouldn't that be cool? You don't think we serve a God that can make us fly in heaven? The angels fly. Why won't we be able to fly? Look, in the Mountain of Transfiguration, Moses and Elijah just appeared there with Jesus. They got there somehow, and I believe they have bodies that are suited to allow them to move around. And I've said it before, and I'm being serious when I say it. I plan on visiting all the planets in our galaxy and all the other galaxies. So if we're not able to just fly, we'll probably get there in some kind of rocket or something that God's going to give us to allow us to travel. Maybe it'll be the Millennium Falcon or the Starship Enterprise, but God is going to give us some vehicle that we can use to get from planet to planet. Maybe we'll say, beam me up, Scotty, and we'll just appear on Mars. All right? I mean, we're using our imaginations here, but why not? You don't think that God's going to allow us to be able to explore the far reaches of the galaxy, to be able to see everything that He created, for us to be able to go there and enjoy it? Our physical bodies will not be limited. You say, oh, of course we can't fly. We don't fly down here. Yeah, we're talking glorified bodies. Will we fly? Will we walk through walls? Jesus did in the upper room. The doors and windows were all shut. Jesus just walked right in His glorified body. Will we not be able to do the same? We're not going to be limited by time or space, and I believe we'll be able to go anywhere and do anything that we want to do. I realized this morning I might have burst some bubbles when I say our pets aren't going to be there, we're not going to live in mansions, and we're not going to be married. But I don't want to make heaven sound like it's not going to be incredible. Heaven will far surpass our wildest dreams. To again quote Alan Gomez, and I'll close with this, but he said, we can be confident that we will not pine after whatever does not carry over from the old order. For in the eternal state we shall be fully satisfied, lacking nothing we desire. If something we enjoyed in this life does not carry over into the next, it is only because God will replace it with something much better. And I firmly believe that if we could bring back anyone, any random person from the other side, bring back a spokesperson from heaven to stand here today and tell us what it's about, what it's like, that person would say, you have no idea. I used to think when I sat where you sat that heaven was going to be wonderful, but now that I've been there, I'm telling you it's better than I ever imagined. And I can't even describe it to you with words. If we could bring back someone from the other side to tell us, they would go on and on about how incredible it is. And then if we said, well, would you just stay here for a little while longer and tell us more about it? They'd say, you kidding? I got to get back. No offense, it was nice to catch up, but I've been gone for too long. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to go back now. When we leave our loved ones behind and we tell them things like, I'll see you later. You know, when we're standing by the bedside of a believer that's about to pass on and we say, you know, you're going to see Jesus, but I'm going to see you again one day. And oh, we sure will. And I believe that when we see them again, the next thing we'll say is, hey, I told you I was going to see you again. As we'll pick up right where we left off with our loved ones that are on the other side. We're not going to have to be introduced and get reacquainted. We're going to pick up right where we left off because our spirit and our soul will go to be with those spirits and souls that are already on the other side. So if we could bring a person back here today, they'd say, oh, it's incredible because no eye has seen and no ear has heard, and it has not entered into the hearts of any mortals down here what God has in store, what He has prepared for those that love Him. Heaven's going to be an incredible place. I don't know about you, but I can't wait to get there. I'm enjoying my time down here, but I can't wait to see what God has in store for those of us that love Him. Would you stand this morning, please, before we dismiss, with your heads bowed and your eyes closed, because, again, we talk about heaven, but we're not going to end without giving people an opportunity to know that you are RSVP'd, that you've got a place prepared for you. We can talk about how nice it is all day long, but if you're not going there, what's the point? If you need to be saved this morning, come and experience God's salvation. For those of us that have been saved, again, maybe you want to intercede. Again, for someone that if they die today, you don't think that they'd make it, you want to talk to God about them. Or maybe today there's something on your heart. Maybe you're missing someone on the other side. Maybe it helps to think about what they might be doing right now. And we have more questions we're going to answer over the next 2 weeks, but maybe today you want to talk to the Lord about some things that are weighing on your heart. But maybe the thought of heaven encourages you today, and you want to ask the Lord to help you in that. So, Lord, help me embrace these promises. They seem abstract. They seem so far away. They seem like things my grandma used to talk about, but God, help them feel real to me, to help me in these difficult times to believe that my loved ones, that they really are alive and well and in your presence, that I really will see them. God, I pray that you would encourage us, those that need it today. And Lord, whatever else might be on our hearts today, God, I pray right now that some would come and receive what they need, salvation, encouragement. Lord, whatever it is, would you speak to us in these next few minutes? And I ask this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. The altar's open. Miss Nancy's playing. If you want to talk to the Lord, please do so.